when I was working my way up, I always wished that I had the chance to be able to have a little chat with the people that I looked up to, the ones that I saw on stage, and really wished that I could be like. Well, my name is Chris Baran, and I have been around probably about 40 plus years now, a couple of hair awards behind me. And I figured I've got the opportunity that I can bring to you the hair heroes that we look up to and admire, and let you have and listen in while we have a conversation and find out their mistakes, find out what they did right and wrong. Welcome to Chris Baran's Headcases. You know what it's like when you have a friend that's coming over to visit, and this friend is the one that you've been working with for years, you've been on stage with, you've partied with many, many times. And, when they come over to your house to visit, you know how it feels like? Well, that's what I feel like today. So my guest today, without giving it away right away, has been the 2017 Lifetime Achievement Award winner, 2020 Influencer of the Year for the International Hairdressing Awards, the NAHA Educator of the Year, co-founder of, let's give it away right now, Sam Villa Brand Tools. So it's not rocket science right now. Suspense is gone. But my dear friend, Mr. Sam Villa. So let's get into this week's head case. Samuel, I'm going to start with that right away, because it's being one of my very best friends, and we went through hell together on the road, etc. But I first of all just want to raise a glass, and it is later in the evening, even if you're watching or listening to this in the daytime. But each of us have a little drink because as we have a saying that we say beer here, and it doesn't matter if you're drinking beer or not. So I invite you guys all to join us with your beer here, and we're going to have a little sip while we're going through this. So Samuel, to one of my best friends, teachers, mentors, inspiration. Cheers, buddy. Here's to you.
Here's to you, brother.
Yeah. And
by
Sam,
the way, you notice I don't have a beer. I have a vodka tonic. And I selected vodka tonic because I thought, I got to keep up with him. So I better have a vodka tonic.
Well, yeah, that means I'm going to have 2 glasses for every one of yours. But look, here, I want to take this first of all just to say thank you. Just to repeat this because it's so important. We've been friends for years, and we've got some amazing stories together. But we also, I know that Sam, and I know you're going to blush. I know that's harder for you. But the point is, people love you. They hang on your every word. In the introductions, we talked about the Educator of the Year and blah, blah, blah. But you're just a really great soul. And you're always wanting to help people on everything they do. And but there's lots that people know your professional side. I want to go and dig into a little bit more of Sam Villa, the human being. And I know you've talked a little bit about it, but just to give everybody some history on where you came from. So your family and God rest, they both passed recently, and all my respect and love for that.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about you came from Carlsbad, and
yes.
Was it Carlsbad or someplace? Because I know there's some question on there when I did a little research on the stuff that I needed to know on this. And so was it really Carlsbad or was it another city?
Well, I was born in Artesia, New Mexico, which was probably about 30, 40 minutes from Carlsbad. But we pretty much all my life, I shouldn't say all my life, but up to the 7th grade, actually, I lived in Carlsbad, New Mexico. I was there. My dad, it was a mining town, Chris, is what it actually was. And Dad had his barber shop there, and I shined the shoes and swept the hair and hated every minute of it.
I just can't imagine you looking down at people's shoes and shining them. That just doesn't seem to fit real well from the Sam Villa that I know.
I remember 25 cents a shine.
25 cents a shine. Did you get to keep it, or you had to split it with Pops, or what?
Oh, no, I got to keep it, but I had to sweep up the hair.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, you got to keep the coin.
Sweep the hair.
Later on, we'll talk, if we get into it, about whenever you say 25 cents, I think of your dad making you eat. If you wanted to go out for the evening, you had to eat a jalapeno pepper. So, what was the story behind that?
Well, as a child, obviously, being
Yeah.
Mexican, you have to like spices. You got to eat
Yeah.
spices.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Mucho
the way that he
caliente.
got, yes, that's right. The way he got us to do it, I will never forget, was for every jalapeno I would eat, I would get 25 cents. Now,
Wow.
25 cents could go a long way. It was 10
Then,
cents an ice cream,
yeah, because
right? Right?
that was like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like gas. But that was what I did to develop my spice buds, if you will,
Yeah.
was
Hmm.
25 cents a jalapeno. My mom was like, couldn't believe that my dad
Yeah.
would make me do that. But 25
Torture
cents,
you.
it,
Yeah.
it, meant, it meant something.
So, what was the most you ever got out of one evening?
Just one, buddy. What do you think? I'm
Oh,
crazy? One jalapeno was enough. And that
yeah.
25 cents, I was able to buy 2 ice creams.
So, tell me about so then you moved to Cali, right? You moved to
Yeah,
California. Tell me a
right.
little bit
Which
about
I
what was
think,
that like?
hey, you know what, Chris? I have to say, and I mean this really and with all good intention, I'm glad Dad did.
Yeah.
New Mexico was great. It was an old type town, Carlsbad Caverns. If anybody's familiar with the Carlsbad area, the Carlsbad Caverns was actually not very far away. I was there in a Cub Scout. I was one of the Cub Scouts that would escort and guide the people with
Ah,
the guide, and then I would turn the lights off at the end, and we'd walk through the cavern. I grew up doing that. I loved doing that. I learned a lot about Carlsbad Caverns. But my dad picked us up probably 7th grade. I'll never forget. He picked us up from school. It's our last day of school, and we were moving to California.
uh-huh.
And that was after going to Catholic school for 7 years. I'll never forget going to a public school for the very first time. Pajaro Junior High School, riding the bus there. And God, they were sniffing glue in the back of the bus. And I was a kid, man. I didn't know what was going on. And, mom and dad said, sit in the front of the bus and don't hang out in the back. And then I got to school. I'll never forget this, Chris. I was sitting in the class. The teacher asked a question. I raised my hand like I was taught. I got called on. I stood up
Yeah.
and everybody started laughing. And
Oh,
that's because of public school, you just kind of you
yeah.
raise your hand,
Yeah.
maybe, but you didn't have to stand up. So it
Yeah.
was quite different moving from New Mexico to California. And that
Yeah.
was Watsonville, California, which was a year later. We moved about 8th grade, 9th grade. So I completed 7th, completed 8th in Pajaro in Watsonville, and then moved to Santa Cruz, California.
Oh,
And
nice.
God, Chris, you talk about life changing. That was pretty cool because it was all beach
Yeah.
surfing. It
Yep.
was all
So
that fun
you
stuff.
became a surfer?
I surfed a little bit, but not much. But I loved
Yeah.
it. But I played more
Yeah.
volleyball on the
Yeah.
beach than I did anything. Volleyball became my game to. My go to
Right.
game was volleyball.
Yeah. Was that in high school?
I was in high school as I was going through high school and in college. And
Yeah.
then that's when college when I decided I'm going to beauty school, all because of a movie shampoo.
Yeah. Well,
You
I want to
know?
hit on that in just a second, but I'm interested. I want to go back a second. What did you, everybody goes to college because that's what they say you have to do. But you, what were you taking? What was because I'm assuming you had a direction where you were going to go.
Well,
What was the direction you were going to go?
I was playing volleyball and a PE major. So I was majoring in
Oh,
physical education. And I enjoyed sports. I loved sports. I loved
yeah.
coaching,
Well,
while
yeah.
I was
Not
going to
that
college.
you have a competitive bone in your body, but
Right? Yeah.
yeah.
You remember that training, diving on the
Oh,
cement
yeah.
for the volleyball?
Yeah.
Yep.
Tell everybody about that. So that was with Blair Singer.
That was a great little training we were doing. Yeah, I remember that. That was the first time Christine Schuster at the time gathered everybody, put us in this hotel, and locked us up literally for a week with
Mm-hmm.
Blair Singer. And we were doing these exercises. And one of them was we were divided up in teams in volleyball. And we would
Yeah.
play points, and he would stop us and talk to us about the context of what was happening, why that could be
Mm-hmm.
happening, et cetera. And then me,
Well,
you know me, I'm
let me top it for a second. We weren't playing on a volleyball court. We
right.
were playing on tennis courts that were cement. So I just wanted to make sure that we got that in there before you went on with the conversation.
Right. And what I did was I got into you put me on the court, you get me in the game. I remember I was diving for the ball, and everybody's like, what are you doing? I go, get diving for the ball, get
Yeah.
it. And he paused it. He goes, "What's going on right now?" And I guess everybody's like, "Well, Sam's crazy. He's diving on the cement. He's doing this. He's keeping the ball up, blah, blah, blah." And the whole idea with Blair was, well, what's that mean? What does that tell you about a person, et cetera? Yeah. But I was just taught, I don't know. I just love sports. I loved how you learned to play what you were playing. It wasn't so much about winning. It was about how do you learn to do that? It's like right now with Mateo, Chris, I'm having a good time with him because I've discovered he really loves soccer. So we're out there, out in the backyard
and
playing.
just so everybody knows, Mateo is your son.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. He's 5 years old. He's going to be 6 coming up in February. But we were playing soccer, and we come inside because it's getting dark. He goes, "Daddy, I want to play soccer inside." I said, "We can't." He goes, "Well, what about it with a balloon?" And I thought, oh, yeah. So I blew up a balloon, and we started playing with a balloon. Now, with a balloon, imagine, you got to be patient. You got to wait for it, dribbling it, controlling it. It's not as easy. With ball has more weight to it. Then I set up a box. I said, "All right, kick it into the box." And he'd kick it. And he goes, "Daddy, it doesn't go anywhere. It's a balloon." I go, "You got to kick it, kick it." So then he started pounding it. And Chris, we did that for about a week. He went outside, and he all of a sudden had some really finesse skills with a ball because now it's a real ball. He could control it. And not only that, when he kicked the ball, he discovered how hard and how far he kicked it. Right. But he's doing great. The last game he played, he scored 5 goals. They call him Little Messi. He's doing just fantastic. Messi. Yeah, Little Messi, man.
Yeah, I can remember this. I remember you and I chatting because for those of you who know that way before when Redken was going, just got started going in New York, everybody had to bunk together, and Sam and I always were roommates. Was staying at the Plaza 50, wasn't it?
Plaza 50.
Plaza 50.
Yes.
And but I always remembered us talking about family, et cetera. And at that time you were, it was very Sam Villa, single guy, career driven, and so on. And we were talking about family. We talked about how I remember kept saying to you, listen, your life is going to change when you have children. I mean, it's, you shift from what your needs are, from what you want to get out of life to when you have children. So, tell us a little bit about that. Is that how has your perspective changed from your needs, wants, family's needs, wants? I mean, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but
no, of course not.
How has being a dad now changed, if changed your perception?
Oh, wow. In a number of ways, Chris. It's amazing. I've discovered pretty much now that time is more invaluable than money. Number one.
Wow. Yeah.
I really think that there's only so much time, especially at my age, and having someone as young as Mateo. Time's very valuable and precious to me.
Tough when you're 40.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. add. Well, never mind. Don't. You add the number yourself, people. Anyway, I really find it more precious. Things around me are so much more precious. It's kind of like I'm working here in the studio right now. I've been shooting all day, and then I had some other podcasts, and he came home from school, and the first thing he's kind of like, he looks at the on-air sign. If it's on, he's quiet until he gets there. If it's off, he's like, "Daddy, can I come in?" kind of thing. But it's like when he says, "Daddy, can you play?" One time I said, "Daddy's got to finish this work." And Chris, when I saw him turn around and walk with his shoulders so down, I'm like, wow, it hurt me more than him. And I thought, you know what? I can't say no. I need to, this can wait. This can wait. Whatever I'm doing, I'll come back to it. If I have to stay up an hour later, I will. It kind of brings me back to those days first in social. When I got into social, they told me, okay, you got to block out time to do it. So you need to be up by 5 a.m. and put at least 2 hours into it before you head out the door to go do what you need to do. Yeah. And that was, the people that were coaching me on the social saying, you need to do this. You don't do it, it's not going to work. It's called consistency. It's the same thing now I find with Mateo. It's like I have to be consistent as much as I can, and my answer being yes for the right reason.
Yeah.
And anytime I can spend with him, I find that much more valuable right now than anything.
Yeah.
Now, is that affecting me as a person? Yes, I find more importance in other things now. Is it affecting me as a teacher? I find myself at times now struggling a little bit, but I also have high expectations. You know that we have
What do you
high.
mean when you say
Well, I
struggling?
find
What do you mean?
myself. Okay. It's like I gotta. Okay, Sam, sit down and do your homework, research.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Sam, sit down and walk through your class. Those kinds of things. The things that sometimes we might take for granted are more valuable now. So I
Yeah.
find myself, discovering that, but I wouldn't change anything,
Yeah.
in terms of where my life's at and what I'm doing with Mateo and my wife, Lisa.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm you're making me go back into my youth, and I think there might be a
Hmm.
bit of where some of the difference comes from is we had our kids real very young, and that was at the beginning of my career when I was building everything, and I had to go on the road. And I've told my kids this story before, but I still bear guilt from it
Yeah.
that when my going away every weekend and doing all those things that and then you don't grow apart, but there's that feeling. And I know there's many people out there that are doing it right now. A lot of people, whether you might not be going on the road, but you're going to work, even if that's just across the street versus across the country, and you've got to put in that time because you're making a living to survive, and if it's not to survive, it's to grow. And sometimes you got to make choices like that. And I know I still bear a lot of guilt for not being there, because you always hear about, oh my, everybody was there for the family, and everybody went to all the school meetings and were there for all the soccer games. And
Right.
yeah, and so I take my hat off to you, bud. So, and maybe had that happened to me when I was maybe more mature, farther along the road, I would have saw the merit in that. But yeah, it's tough when you have family and a life that keeps you going all the time too. So
Right. Yeah.
interesting stuff.
You just got to figure out, what's valuable right now. And I think with the past few years, what's been going on, I think the whole concept of mental wealth and mental health is so valuable right now. So many
Mm,
people going through so many
yeah,
things.
yeah,
So for me right now, it's about putting this whole family thing first right now. It's
yeah.
critical. Today we carved the pumpkin.
You carve pumpkins.
Yeah,
Did you bring them in to show us?
it wasn't on the schedule, but he came in and
Oh,
said, "Daddy, let's carve a pumpkin." I'm like,
carve the pumpkin.
"Okay, let's put aside. Let's go carve the pumpkin." So good old YouTube saves us. Let's look at
Yep,
one on YouTube and see
yep.
what we can do. So yeah,
That's awesome.
it's fun.
So,
Yeah,
and obviously you went, that's amazing when Mateo finished his carving. Who
yeah.
who who tra- who timed out first? Who said I'm done first?
Well,
You
he
or him?
actually I made him draw it, so he had to draw it,
Okay.
and then once he draw it, I would get the carving started, and then he would do it. You
Oh,
know
I
how
see.
kids. Well, I
Got
don't know
it.
if
Got
you
it.
remember, but kids. Okay, Daddy, I had enough. Time to move on.
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
You know
Yep.
how
Yep.
that is, the attention
I'm done.
span.
I'm
Yeah.
done.
So I ended up completing it, but it was just fun to do. It brought back some great memories.
Yeah. I want to go back. I'm going to rewind a little bit and take you back to you were volleyball, and now you said, and I think this is an interesting story, that there was a movie that changed your life. So you were in there to be physical education teacher, going to college, went to a movie with a girl, with the guys.
I can't even recall. I think it was my
Uh,
girlfriend at the time.
uh,
Yeah. Might have been
so
Patty at the time. Yeah.
Patty, interesting.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
you went to the movie. What was the movie, and what happened, and how did that
You little
change?
devil, you. The movie was Shampoo. And obviously, I think if you don't know the movie Shampoo, you really need to see it. It's about a
Yeah,
hairdresser
but
that
yeah, it was
out of
actually, I think it was
LA.
loosely based on Gene Shakov, wasn't it?
Yes, you're
Yeah,
right. And a lot of
yeah,
people don't know that. Good call, Chris.
yeah.
That's who he's out of. What was he out of Chicago? No, LA or yeah.
No, he
But
was
you're right.
L.A. L.A.
LA,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
But
actually, it was when it was when if everybody remembers from history of Redken was looking at bringing in Vidal Sassoon, and they were up in the air. Who do we bring in? Do we bring in somebody we wanted influencer went way before then, but it was Vidal Sassoon. And also, if I have the story right, and I'm sure anybody from the Redken days of yore will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the other person was Gene Shakov.
Mm-hmm.
And
I don't
it was
know
either
that,
one of those two.
yeah,
But
it
that's
was.
what it is. So you watch the movie. Gene Shakov is in it, and Warren Beatty is playing the
That's
part
correct.
loosely based on Gene Shakov.
Yeah, matter of fact, Charles Penzone, I was
Yeah.
talking to him a couple of weeks, and he mentioned Gene Shakov. He goes, "It was on Gene Shakov, not that one hairdresser in Beverly Hills that people tend to think who it might be."
Yeah.
Anyway, I went to see that movie, and that movie kind of said, "Oh, wait a minute! I'm going to college. I'm playing volleyball. I'm a PE major. There's not much in that. Ooh, and Dad's a barber." But I could go home and I could say I want to be a beautician at that time. Be a beautician. Yeah, it looks like it's a lot of fun. I'm going to try it. So off I went home after that movie. It was saw it while I was in college. A week later, I go home and I'm like, I want to go to beauty school. Can you imagine my mom's
What?
jaw dropping and my dad was kind of like clapping underneath the table? It was a great story. So my mom
So
was like,
you
"Wait
went,
a minute."
yeah.
You
So, but
go,
you went
no,
to
go ahead.
school. So you went to
Yeah,
school, right?
I was going to college at the time, and I went to see the
Yeah.
movie. I think I was a junior in college, and I had 1 year left. My mom's like, "Are you crazy? You got 1 year left. I mean, if you quit, then you're responsible for paying your last year if beauty school doesn't work out." And my dad was like, "Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Give him a chance. As long as you're willing to pay for the last year if it doesn't work out." And I agreed. And off I went to beauty school.
And what was that
Good old
like?
San Mateo, California, from Santa Cruz to San Mateo, which was pretty much middle between Santa Cruz and San Francisco. So it
Yeah.
wasn't too far from home, but yet far enough. It was a great school. I went to the Ponce College of Beauty. Now,
Yeah.
for those of you that don't know out there, it was Sally Ponce, who was married to Peter Hans. But she kept her name because she was very famous in the industry, Sally Ponce, great for comb outs, Chris, and all that kind of
Right.
thing at that time. She was the Olympic women's coach for the Olympics in hair.
Wow.
They would have that at the time. And then there was Peter Hans. And Peter Hans was the guy who invented the rod transfer. He would
Yeah.
process in a blue rod, but transfer before he would neutralize to a purple rod. So he
Yep.
believed in really breaking the bonds down and doing a rod transfer. Then he came out with a product. God, I can't remember what the product was. But I want everybody to know something. What's so cool about, there's two stories I'd love to share. Number one, twist cutting. Everybody thinks I invented this twist cut. No, false. I haven't invented anything. What it was from Peter Hans. Chris, he would imagine this, he'd take a whole kind of section angled like this.
Yeah.
He would pull it all forward, twist it once, and then cut it, and he'd get the most beautiful angle. And then he would do it here in the fringe too. So it's nothing I've invented. It's something I just learned in beauty school and just brought it back out. It works in today's world. But I'll never forget one incident that happened, Chris. I think I was about 3 months into the school and really focusing on rollers. And I'll never forget the teacher coming over to me and saying, "Sam, your rollers, I want you to go over to your client. I want you to apologize. Lift up the hood, apologize to her, and put the rollers back on her head. They have fallen out." And I kind of look at her, I'm like, "Yes, Miss Lena. Okay, off I go." So, Chris, as I'm walking away, the teacher's like, "And you might want to think about possibly doing something else." As I walked away. Yes. So
Oh.
there I go do that. I put it back in. I come back. I'm like, after hearing that, you're like, shit, did I make the wrong decision here or what? But my dad called me up about that weekend, maybe a week later, and said, "Let's go to a hair show." And I said, "What's that?" He said, those are things you need to know what they are because you should go to them all the time. There's something to learn. That's where you're going to further your education, or as at these hair shows. So he said, "I'm going to pick you up Sunday early. We're going to get there early, get a good seat." On the way there, I said, "Who are we going to see?" He said, "We're going to see Vidal Sassoon." So imagine going to this hair show in San Francisco. and seeing Vidal Sassoon, Christopher Broker, Roger Thompson, and Alan Benfield Bush, four of the greats. They all had Asian models and were cutting these Asian hair, just melting it to these structures. I was on the edge of my seat. And that's when I told my dad, I want to do that. I want to be up there someday. And he said, that's all ego and no money. If you choose to do that, you need to do it with no ego and prove you can make some money doing it. And you know what it's like. It's tough to make money doing it. It takes a long, long time for the youth that's out there. But if you put, I always believe what you put out is what you get back. What you put out in this industry is what you get. All of a sudden, Chris, I went back to school. I really believe I had purpose, and things just started to happen, man. I mean, I could cut a straight line. Those rollers were glued in. They weren't going anywhere. And things just started to happen.
Yeah. But I want to, first of all, what an amazing thing to have a father that, where most fathers would say, no, you're not doing this. No way in the world you're being a hairdresser. But the point that he had the foresight to put the bug in your ear to say, look, there's not a lot of money in that unless you're going to do it really well. And so, I mean, I knew your parents and loved them, but it's so refreshing to know that your parents are, oftentimes people get into our business and their parents aren't all for it. And it's not until you get out and they see them earning a lot more money than they could have before. But to have the foresight to be able to tell the kids that stick it out, go deep, and make sure you're going after it with not only to get what you want out of life, but to be able to make money out of it as well. Because I think that's really an important part of our business.
Think about that for a moment there, Chris. Here he was towards the end of his career. But where do you think he got a lot of his education? After we moved to California, it was Redken. Yeah. I think Redken instilled that mindset in him.
Yeah.
The idea of, you stay humble behind the chair, you go to shows, you learn, you do all that. I think that came from Redken, and it was in his blood.
Yeah. So I know that everybody knows you as the global artistic ambassador for Redken, but and you obviously own Sam Villa, the tool line of tools, and we'll go down that road a little bit later. But you started your education career other than that, so I'd love to talk a little bit about that. Where that started, your educational career. You were, I believe, the artistic director for another company at that time. And how did that all come about? What was that? Where did that all come about, et cetera?
Well, I was the artistic director for a company called Hayashi, which was a wet line out of LA. They were much more known on the international market, strong in the East Coast and Southeast. But let me say it this way. How can I say? Well, I'm just going to say it was a circus. It was a circus. Yeah. Those were the days I was tossing the moose balls back and forth on stage, and we were quick cutting hair, just, Benihana like. And I just got tired of that and said, you know what? I want to teach. I want to be a teacher. I'm done with the circus act. There's a time and place for that. I can hold on to it, but I really want to focus on teaching. And lo and behold, I got a call from Redken, the great Terry Donnelly. Called and said, hey, I'm putting together this team, would love to have you audition, have heard about you. And that's where my journey started. It was amazing. And the audition, Terry and I were talking about it most recently, a couple of weeks ago at Intercoiffure. She said, I'll never forget your audition. And that was the time where I showed up a day late because they had switched it and I didn't know it. I didn't receive that mail till I returned back from Europe. And I show up at the hotel. I'm here for an audition. The hotel's like, sir, that was yesterday. You missed it. I'm like, no. So they said, well, the lady that conducted the audition, she hasn't checked out, because I asked them, has she checked out? They said, no. So I tried to chase her down, Chris. I wrote a letter, please slide this underneath her door. And sure enough, the guy comes running out. He's like, just as I was getting ready, he's like, that lady you want to talk to, she's on the phone. So I spoke to her. I said, Terry, I sent my model away. I've been trying. She goes, well, you're a showman of experience. I got the room back. I'll meet you there in 30 minutes. Get a model. And I'm like, oh, okay. I hung up the house phone, and here I am, Chris. Can you see? Just imagine you're in the hotel lobby, and at that time I was into avant-garde, so my book portfolio was primarily at that time. You had a portfolio. I was showing it to these customers around the hotel, and people were like, and the concierge guy who had been helping me out, he was watching me. He's like, "Come here. What are you doing? You can't be doing that." And I explained the story. He knew it already, and
Yeah.
he said, "Hold on." He goes back. He comes back. He goes, okay, here's what's going to happen. The girl that's coming on next, the concierge, she's going to be your model. She said she needs a haircut. You can cut her. And I'm like, wow, my lucky day. She comes out. She has coils, all
Oh,
coils. And I thought, oh my, what am I going to do here? And immediately I reached back to the Nefertiti.
yeah.
And I took her in that model room. I knew where to go.
Trevor Sorby's Nefertiti.
Yes, and I took that and I went into the room, cut it really half head right away. I'll never forget. Terry Donnelly walks in. She goes, "Holy shit!" You know, Terry. Holy shit! You got a model. Not only that, you cut half her head. I
Yeah.
go, "Are you?" She goes, "Are you ready?" I go, "I'm ready." So she sits down behind this table. She got in the little riser back and the whole thing, and then she sits down. Okay, go ahead and begin. I ran off the stage, and she's watching me go off. She looks at the model. He goes, "Where is he going? And does he have to go take a pee? Where is he going?" I open up the door, Chris. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from Redken, Sam Villa." And she's sitting at the table going, what is he doing? There's only me. And she goes, "Oh, he's giving me the whole act here, you know?"
Yeah.
So I got into my demo, did it. She's taking notes fiercely. I'm talking to myself saying, "Oh man, she's ripping me apart, just ripping me apart, taking all these notes." So when I was done, she came up, checked the haircut, said, "Okay, great." Sent the model home, sat me down. She goes, "Well, I hate to tell you this." I'm like, "Oh man, I didn't make it." She goes, "You're overqualified." And I go, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Sam, I could have you as a national performing artist. I can't do that. I really feel you need to earn the right to go up. But if you just come in and do what you do and teach like this," she goes, "they'll push you to the up and you'll earn the right. And I don't want people in the model room stabbing you because they're walking through all these hoops.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you need to." And Terry was smart.
Yeah.
And I
That
go, "Well,
was
what
a smart
about,
move.
yes." I said, "Well, what about all the notes?" And she goes, "Are you kidding me? I'm stealing all your shit." Because it was right on with the way Terry talked. The whole elevation, the overdirection, the whole at that time, the way we were elevating the hair. So
Yeah.
that's how my journey started, and from
Yeah.
there, I'm so glad, I'm so blessed. I mean, when I say I am the person I am today as a teacher, it's
Yeah.
because I reckon it's true. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to go. I want to go back because speaking of Redken, and there was I want to talk to you about about your family, because I know how important that is to you right now. And I
Mhm.
remember when I remember you came out and you said, "Look, we're going to have a family," and I could. That's when I kind of went back and I went, "Okay, good. Now I'm going to see how your life is going to change."
Right.
And I remember being at the symposium and being friends. You confided in me some of this. You had some. I don't know what the right word is, but you had some very interesting news. I just have to leave it at that. That came out about Lisa and
Mhm.
and you didn't know his name at the time, but about the pregnancy. And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was a pretty emotional time. I mean, having a child is something that was last that I wanted to do, but it happened. It was a miracle baby. It happened. But the process that Lisa went through in terms of during her pregnancy, especially after the third, fourth month, every time she was going back in, she was told something's wrong. And me being on the road, I wasn't there for her, and I didn't know this until she shared with me. But every time after going in and getting her scans done, she was always on the way home crying because there was something she was told. It was either his kidneys, his liver, his heart. And I remember one time going in and going through the scan process, and I could see the nurse looking kind of strange. But I thought, this doesn't look right. She's not look really comfortable with what she sees in the screen. So she excused herself. She brought the doctor back in, and they were talking. And then the doctor said, well, do you have any little people in your family? And I'm like, not that I know of. And Lisa's like, no. I said, well, I can do some research, but doctor, no. And he goes, well, he seems that, but we have a case of skeletal dysplasia. Skeletal dysplasia is where the bones aren't growing, and there's things that happen. There was a scan where his hand was attached to his elbow. So there was issues that were happening there. I mean, anything and everything that you could think of, we were hit with. His lungs are collapsing. That was the last one they said was his lungs are collapsing. We have to take him now. And that was like, what was that? Almost 8 months in, I believe it was. And I'll never forget, he said, you need to come tomorrow. We're going to take him tomorrow. So we both were like, obviously, okay, let's go. So we're there. But when we arrived, they put us in this room, and he called me out a couple times. He said, I'm waiting for some more medications and stuff. And he was just reminding me what we've been through. And he basically, there was one time in a visit, I couldn't believe that he even said this. He goes, I don't know what to tell you. He goes, but I think he's going to make a good horse jockey. This is what the doctor, I was ready to punch him. And my mother-in-law held onto my hand. I was like, how could you say this? And he said, well, I've known your wife for quite some time. And he goes, number one, this was unexpected. Number two is now we're going through all these things. So he goes, we need to get on with this. So when I walked in there was something like 24, 25 people in there. And he had every trauma unit you could possibly think of was there. The heart, the lungs, the kidneys, brain. And then he said the two ladies in the corner are psychiatrists because we may need them. So I'll never forget, him going through of delivering Mateo, and he pulls Mateo out, and he's even got a tear in his eye. And he says, we're very blessed. We have a healthy baby boy. And to this day, Mateo is a miracle baby. The medical society even says he's, you saw it, Sam. You saw these things. The machine is correct. We don't know what to tell you. You just need to celebrate the fact that you have a little miracle baby boy. He's healthy. He does have growth issues, but he's not going to be a small person. I think he's in the smaller percentile of a class in terms of growth. But he's probably going to be maybe smaller than I am, maybe 5'7". That's normal. 5'7". I'm 5'8", 5'6",
Yeah.
So, but I can see him now, in soccer when I watch him, and I watch he's in, what is he up to? He's playing with 5 and 6 years old.
Yeah.
And he's the littlest guy on the team, but he's the fastest guy on the team. And he gets knocked over a lot, I noticed, but he gets right back up. Yeah. So but that was the person that I really admire is Lisa, what she went through, and how she endured all of that and kept it a lot to herself, because I was busy and she didn't want to disrupt what I was doing. Wouldn't share 100% of it all with me until it was all done. And he was about a year old, and we sat down, and she got, her and her mom took me through the whole story about that. And I said, oh my, I knew a lot of it, but the pain is what she shared. Yeah. But to this day, we're very blessed. And, that's why I think family is so critical.
Yeah. It's interesting how, I know that on the Baran plane, it's, thank God nothing that tragic or that much of a hardship happened to us. But I do know that the wives often shield the husband from a lot of the pain that's going on, and so I think hats off. Well, we've got a drink in our hand. Let's toast all the wives and lovely ladies out there that help to save our backside.
Indeed.
Yeah. Yes. Cheers, all the ladies out there. So thank you. So I was trying to do that and wipe away a tear at the same time, but it didn't work.
I was holding back, buddy.
Yeah.
I was telling you.
So, in the midst of this, you've successful on the stage, etc. Now, but and what was the year you started All of Us, and you started the Sam Via brand? And what was that year?
Gosh, well, I was told today it's been what 15 years. Not
Oh,
today, but this year will be 15 years. I
yeah,
mean, isn't that amazing, Chris? How time has
yeah,
flown by.
yeah.
Amazing.
Do you remember when you came up to me and said, "I'm starting a brand"? I went, "Good.
Yes.
What's it called?" And what did you tell me?
It's all it was all of us, ALLVUS. And the
All of
reason
us.
because it was all of us. I wanted the brand to be about all of us, about all the
Yeah,
people, the industry as a whole. It goes on to that whole thing, that phrase that I always have hung on to, that people buy people, then they buy things,
yeah.
that whole concept of that. And that's what we built the brand on. It's all of us. It's about all of us. As a matter of fact, there's times in our emails when we will say it's a good day to be all of us, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And
So, and what I want to take you back to that. I don't know if you remember the story. You said to me, "What do you think of the name?" You remember what I said to you?
no, I don't. Feel me. I
That's when
can't
you
recall.
said, you said, "Should we call the company All of Us?" And I said, "No."
Oh,
You
wow.
remember?
Really? I don't recall that, Chris.
And I said it should be called Sam Via.
Aha.
Yeah,
Yes.
because I said, All of Us is a wonderful name. But if you look at the brands that are out there, then you had all the recognition going for you. You had that presence up there, and they wouldn't know who. Like I think I remember saying to you, they won't. It's a great name, but they won't remember
Yep.
what All of Us is. But they will remember what Sam Via is.
You're
So
absolutely right, because that is what, after we named the company that, I wanted to put that name on the tools.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I mean, you even said no. Why?
no,
Because the team, the investors in marketing were like, "What, are you crazy?" And they said, "Who's all of us?" I said, "We are." They go, "Well, who's we?" "Well, all of
yeah,
us." They go, "No, you're going to put your name on it. And
yeah,
the reason you're going to put your name on it because people can identify with that."
exactly.
And they just said, "Get over your humble little self."
Now I want to talk about your team because you've got
Hmm.
a pretty amazing team on your All of Us team.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm fortunate to have two great co-founders I'm surrounded with. That's Beth Carson, she's the president, and then
Mm-hmm.
Kurt Gerheim, he is in charge of schools now. But we go back way as friends,
Yeah.
way as friends. But they have expertise in what they do. Kurt with Memorex, and Beth Carson has been with so many brands. I mean, she goes all the way back to, what's the name of that big brand? Tool. There was a tool brand. I didn't even know. I forgot
Oh,
the name of
really?
it. Yes, I didn't even know it. But anyway, these two friends have, we've always been, they've watched my career. And there came
Mm-hmm.
a point where I was thinking, okay, I can't be a platform artist forever. I'm
Yeah.
really focused on this. I need to have something to fall back on. There's
Mm-hmm.
always someone that's going to replace you. And as you've seen, Redken artists, we come and we go. So I thought I need to do something. And one of the things I wanted to do was continue the education process. And that was CDs. So I
Mm-hmm.
was fortunate. One of my big coaches and mentors is a man by the name of Michael Colazzi. He happened to be the vice president of the Gap. And so I'll never forget when he left the Gap, he became, in those days, the word entrepreneur was becoming very popular. People
Mm-hmm.
were becoming entrepreneurs. And he said, "You're my first case." I'll never forget that case. I said, "What's that?" He goes, "Well, you're my first project. You need to open up a salon. I'm going to help you open up a salon." And that was the first thing we did. And then
Oh,
he sits on there. And then one of my accountants, Neil Diver, who you've met, Neil.
yeah, yeah.
Neil was my accountant from the salon days all the way up until most recently, a couple of years ago. He retired. But all of these people were the ones that had the mindset. I would say, "I want to do this." And then they said, "Well, how do you want to do it?" And then I would say how I wanted to do it. And they would get all the things together to make it happen that way. And one of them was that Bobology DVD
Right, right.
was where it became revolutionary. The fact that we shot it in a salon in
Doing full
Connecticut.
education. Yeah,
Yes, we wanted to do it. There's a cooking show, Chris. You ever
yeah.
watch it where the guy with the glasses out of San Francisco and he'd come out of the oven and he'd go, the bread's just about done. Or, that guy. He was really funny. I said, He's talking to the camera and he's teaching them how to cook, but he talks to the camera. And I'll never forget, I went to Charlie Kennedy. He said, Charlie, I want to shoot a DVD. I want it to be a hands-on. I want to shoot it live, but we're going to edit it into an educational DVD. He goes, you're going to do what? He goes, why don't you just do that in the studio? I go, no, that's the problem. I want to do it when I'm teaching so that they can learn the answers of the coaches, the answers the students are asking, and me actually coaching them to the answer. So how many times do you watch a step-by-step DVD shot in a studio and what you see is what you get? But you have a question. Well, what if it was curly hair? What if it was fine hair? What if you took big sections? So that was the DVD. Gordon Miller, I was on a podcast with him today. He goes, Sam, I remember that DVD, Bobology. He goes, Mary Rector, we were all over that because it was shot differently. It was like a reality training
it was
session.
reality TV because you had people doing hair and everything that was in it. It was like a hands-on workshop.
Right. I'd say, okay, follow me over here. Let's go to the next station. Let's find out what's happening over here. And we'd find out. We'd all learn together. So after that, we decided, well, we need to expand on more. What would you like to expand? I said, tools need to be correct for people to hold. In those days, I didn't know, I was still, what's ergonomics? And they go, Sam, that's about the ergonomics of your body. Look it up, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, that's it. Ergonomic tools where blow dryers aren't heavy. I was having issues with my hand. Doctor said, you need to stop putting the thumb there. It needs to be here. It's normal. That's the normal position of your hand. So those kinds of things was the reason for expanding to the concept of tools. But education was in my genes. That's just what I'm about. The tools are secondary, but the tools, are something that's really grown to something that have a strong meaning in the industry in terms of how they're made, why they're made.
Sam, because I know this because I know you. We read each other like a book. When we've been on stage, for those of you who have or haven't seen us on stage, we know what each other's thinking when we're thinking it.
The addicts of our mind.
The addicts. Oh my God, that was. Well, we should talk about that in just a bit. But I want to go back to what I admire so much about you is your ethics that you have as well. I remember when you first launched your brushes. And you had the dark colored bamboo on there.
Mahogany.
And the mahogany, that's what it was.
Mahogany was first, yes.
And mahogany was first, and then it started peeling. And rather than going through that, you said, pull the line, you made a new line, but you pulled that line, said, that's not going out there. I want my stuff back, and get all of the other stuff about that. What other people would have said, the hell with everybody. They bought it. We'll just go about working through it and we'll get to the other side and then we'll launch it again. What was the thing that went through your brain that said, nope, we're going to pull all this stuff and I want to start with a new brand, get that out there as quick as possible. That works.
Yeah, well, the first thing was we wanted mahogany, and there was a reason for mahogany, sustainability, et cetera. But what we got was not pure mahogany; it was hollow. So they were chipping, they were breaking. It was just not the right thing. And unfortunately, once again, being surrounded by the right people, it's like, what do? I said my personal take was, this can't be happening. We need to stop this. It was Beth that said, we're pulling everything. We're going to pull everything back. I said, please, can we? Yes, we're going to figure that out. So once again, it was something that really upset me, but what can we do? The people around me, they knew what to do. They made the decision. Okay, we're pulling it. We're bringing it back. And that's what the company was built on, because they knew that's what I was about when it came to education. It wasn't, I might call them tricks, but they're effective. They work.
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to teach something out there that's a trick that doesn't work. I just don't believe in doing that, and there's many ways to do things. But that was about the idea of, this is wrong. Number one, we got cheated. We were lied to. Number two, we're not going to ride the tail and ride it. We're going to pull them all right now to save the integrity of the name, is what Beth said. The name Sanvia.
That's exactly what it was, and that's what I know you as integral. And it's okay if I go a little deeper here, because I know you, but I know you have an amazing team, and I know that from the Sanvia that I know, that you and I are a lot alike, where we have two sides to who we are. And I'm going to speak more to me first,
Okay.
and then you can add you in. But I think where we're alike is that I know I'm personally, if you've ever been through Blair Singer's Sales Dogs, which just describes different kind of dogs as it relates to the kind of people and the way you are with sales. I am part, the one major part of me is retriever, which just means need to be liked. And then I have another side of me that is pit bull. That means when stress and the shit hits the fan, that I'll go for the jugular, or I'll go for your ankle and I'll bite on it and I won't let go. Meaning, once I get something done, if it's stress situation, I won't quit until it gets done. And I've seen Sam Villa in those same situations where I know that you will go on your coach side like I do. And then, but when things don't go or getting stalled, then you just go into order mode. Tell me
Yes.
about how that is, and what's that like with your team, and the reason, like what happens when you get into that mode with your teams, etc. I know what happens with me.
Oh wow! First of all, I am exactly like that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting, Chris. You get me out in front of those people, and there's a certain thing that comes over me. It's the
Mm-hmm.
character, it's the personality, it's the okay, I chose this, so
Mm-hmm.
therefore I show up. When I fall back around my team, I become a little bit more not so accountable for myself, so to speak. I depend on them a lot. Um,
Mm.
I become a little bit more no rather than allow me to explain.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So there's this side over here, which is that side of the teacher. Okay.
Yeah.
Then
Yep.
there's this side
The
over
coach.
here. Yes. And then there's side over here with my team, where sometimes I need to back up on say, let me say that a different way. That's a
Yeah.
little bit more on the positive side and not so much on that order side. So
Mm-hmm.
there's this passive aggressive personality, I guess, Chris, that sometimes that comes out of me, and I find, Chris, that as I'm becoming older, it's starting to come out on that other side too. It's a little bit more difficult to control things,
Yeah.
and it's important. I just have to be
Yeah.
careful with that. I mean, how we put ourselves in a position, and I don't mean this in a pat on the back sort of way, but I'll never forget a story that Lisa shared with me. And she said, "This is why you need to be careful." We
Yeah.
were at the Orlando premiere show. We had just finished eating breakfast, and we got up, paid the bill, and got up to leave. And she said, "Did you hear that table next to you?" I said, "No." I go, "What happened? Did I say something wrong or blah, blah?" You know how. She's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
"No, you got up to leave. And the lady said to the other lady, grab his fork. Grab his fork." I'm like, "What?" She said, "Grab his fork. He ate out of that fork. Grab his fork." I go, "No, that's yeah." Anyway, my point is this: is that I've discovered that I just, as careful as I need to be outside, I need to be just as careful within my brand when I'm
Yeah.
with my people. It's just
Yeah.
as valuable. That's my point.
Yeah. And
But
I
yeah,
think
what a
because
story.
I find that same thing, like with I can coach other people and put on the right words, choose the right word, not get emotional when I'm
Yep.
coaching someone. But yet when I get around my family, it's, you revert back. I revert back to dad, and
Yes.
not always using those skills.
Yep.
So, I and I know Leah's on the other end. Leah's producer. Just everybody, just so you know, Leah's producing this show in the background. You can probably bleep this out and maybe cover over my mouth, but because our wives know our shtick, because we often run it by them, they know what we're going through. And I'll never forget when I was learning how to debrief, which is an art in itself. You go
Yes,
through
indeed.
the steps at the beginning, and I can remember even having I remember talking a friend out of contemplating suicide by using a debrief method with him. And so I went, I'm pretty good at this. And then I went up to my wife and I started the process, and she looked at me and said, just, they're going to bleep this out, but I said, she looked at me straight in the eye and said, don't you fucking debrief me, and so
Yeah,
you have to be
read up.
careful. You have to be careful of what the shtick that and what you do, that they know that, and it doesn't work all the time.
Right.
So you have to be
Yes.
careful on that. So, yeah. So Sam, that's been a great part of your team, and you've always been this, but I hope that, because it's not rehearsed, but you started this movement, at least I thought you did. I started this movement about hairdressers supporting hairdressers.
Yes.
Can you tell us the story of where that came from and what prompted that, et cetera? Because I know I believe in it and I support it myself.
Yeah, well, it came from a conversation that I had with my education at the time, wellness ambassador, now Andrew Carruthers, and and I were trying to come up with a hashtag that had a lot of meaning to it.
Yeah.
And he said, Sam, there's one thing that you do is you support everybody. You allow somebody to come on our platform, sell their own share. You support other brands. You're sharing with other brands. He goes, you're about, sharing with artists and brands. And that's where the hashtag came from, was the conversations Andrew and I had, where we said it's artists supporting artists and brands supporting brands. And what that means is that this whole thing, Andrew would say, he goes, you stand in front of there and you always say this. You always say there's plenty for everybody. There's plenty for everybody. What we need to do is support each other, understand there's plenty for everybody, but it's up to you to go out and get it. And that's where it comes from, this whole thing. And then the culture of the brand, that's what it's always been. It's been built about, supporting the hairdresser. What is it? The hairdresser's hairdresser, the artist supporting artists, the brand supporting brands. That's where that came from. And then we got deeper into it when we got into this whole pandemic thing. It made even more sense. And that's where it really, really flourished, was artists supporting artists and brands supporting brands, with all the things that we were doing, the social-a-thon, the fabric of change, etc. Those were things that really brought that hashtag to the forefront.
And because just so if people outside of the education side of manufacturing and all of that, there was, back in, I call it the day, when you would go to a show, and while you'd sort of hang around with other artists or whatever, but it was always, in the 90s, et cetera, in the early 2000s, you would go around, and it was, if you were from another brand, you'd say hi, and you were somewhat social and so on, but they were the competitor, as opposed to, we're all just hairdressers that work in our own gig, and we're educators and we support the companies that we believe in. But it kind of pulled everybody apart a little bit. And I think that now is, people are just going, look, we're all doing things together. We're all helping change lives of people. And it's really important that we all know one another. And I think it's when all of a sudden we had brands that were being put together within the PPD movement. It was like all of a sudden, they'd made announcements that Redken and Pureology were like sister companies. And we all talk about the sister companies that go on with brands, et cetera. But they, all of a sudden you had a conscious effort that you were going to be mentoring people within there. And I keep thinking, damn, we know so many amazing people that are educators, whether they're with another manufacturer, a brand on their own or whatever. It's just always so cool just to get to know those people of like minds. And I've always had this dream that what would happen one day when you got all of those people together and you just did a jam together. So you'd learn from one another and just pass on. I know this, you know that. I didn't know you could do it that way. Just think about how we could elevate each and every person that was out there. So that's always been kind of a dream of mine.
Chris, you ever stop to think that Redken, remember now, I really believe this, but Redken put education on the map.
Yeah.
Or let me say it a different. Redken elevated education to another level. And if you notice, a lot of brands were saying, "What are they doing with those flip charts?
Right.
What's that all about?" Then pretty soon, what do you find people doing?
Yeah.
Later, they're starting to use flip charts. What are you seeing these companies become? They're becoming more learner focused. They're
Yeah.
becoming more interactive. So when you think about that, Redken started to bring everything together and started through their education process saying, hey, there is a way out there that we all can teach where
Yeah.
we can get what you want to get across. But you need to make yourself a teacher, not a platform artist.
Right. Do you remember? I'm guessing. I'm going to take a wild stab at this. 19.
When Terry Donnelly cut your hair, oh
Oh
mighty
no, no,
lion,
no, no! This was after that. Oh, I do remember
cowardly
that.
lion.
I remember being in upstate New York at a Blair Singer. Uh, we had that 7-day event that we did.
Yes.
No, no, no. First of
Mm-hmm.
all, no. It was held at, I think, the Marriott in New York. We had a weekend retreat.
Okay.
Benny
Mm-hmm.
Tognini was there. Philip Wilson was there. You and I and a whole bunch of other amazing people were
Mm-hmm.
at that training. And I remember that he did all of this stuff that was so different and what most people thought was weird when it came to training. And I remember you and I sitting there and say, well, we don't know what this is, but this seems pretty damn cool.
Right.
We've got to give this a whirl. And you remember we just said, we're going to give this a go. We don't know where it's going to go. We don't know how to do it yet. But I just remember us sitting in the back of the room and said, this really is the future of education, even though we didn't even know what it was at the time.
No, I think what we did was we took it and we said, how can we make this work with
Mm-hmm.
hair?
Yeah.
Because I could see that working with a lot of in the corporate world, in the office world kind of thing, and that whole. But I'm thinking, how do we do this in terms of teaching? But that was one thing where he opened us up in terms of, learner focus, interactive. That's what it was
Mm-hmm.
about. That's where we
Yeah.
realized we don't just stand and deliver and tell them.
Right.
We get them to learn with us. That
Right.
was where. And then I'll never forget that first exchange week that we had. And at the end, we were so excited, Chris, because we figured it out. Took us till the end of that class to figure it out, but we thought,
Yeah.
okay, we're onto something here.
But then wouldn't you agree, it also took us another, almost 10 years to really figure it out and to really take one piece and evolve it into another and into another as well. Yeah. So
yes, indeed.
Yep,
No doubt.
it's been a hell of a ride. Now I want to, just because there is, do you remember we would go to hang out after beer here, after
And
Malta
play bum
Call?
darts.
Well, we won't go there. Well, I guess now that we have
Well,
to.
we went there in Canada this last
Yeah.
weekend. We were thinking about you, buddy.
But you remember we would tell road warrior stories, because that, way back there was all the times when you would go on the road and there would be all these quirky, crappy things that would happen to us on the road. And while they were devastating at the time or embarrassing or funny or whatever, we would always go beer here at the end of the night and we'd just tell all the road warrior stories that we had. And I've been trying to, go back and go to mine, but I remember that in Symposium, I don't know if you remember, I think you remember Frank Sinceri, but when we did the very first regional tours, which is where you would take, we sort of like mini symposiums, but you would take them on tour. You would do a couple of shows, but they would be all across the country, and you would travel throughout the year. In the spring and the fall, you would do these Redken regionals, and we would always play pranks on one another. And finally, and I think it was Doug Kohler that was doing the shows at that time. That was before Charlie Kennedy's time. And he finally had to lay down the law because he said, we were pulling so many pranks that on everybody. He said, there's no pranks allowed until the last show. And so we would spend the whole year planning pranks that we would do and could do on the last show. So Frank Sinceri, who was doing amazing, man, he did amazing barbering, etc. And I for the year I studied him how he would go on stage, and those days we never had trolleys. We just had you would get a hotel tray. And you
Yes.
put a napkin over top of it, and you put your tools on it, and you'd walk on stage with it, and you'd set it down on the table, a draped table, no fancy pants stuff. And then you would continue to work, and you'd go back and forwards with this thing. And you put it on this table that was literally the tray that you would have to put your dirty dishes on. And you'd have that same tray, except it had a little cover on it. And I watched him every time. He would put it down. He would take a drink of water, and then he would turn to the audience. And he would deliver his opening remarks. Well, one of my clients told me about alum, and that if you put alum in a drink and then you put it in your mouth and you take a drink of it, you would it would take all the saliva out of your mouth. And you'd go. So. I told Rita's my wife. We got the alum, but they never told us how much to pull in it. And Rita said to me, "Well, how much of this alum do I put in the water?" And I said, "I don't know. Make it like sometimes you have to just keep doing it until it doesn't dissolve anymore, and then dissolve what doesn't dissolve, put it in the glass." So I'm standing behind, waiting for this to go on stage, and he walks on stage. He has this tray. But this time, just before he walks on stage, he grabs the water, and I'm going, "Oh, no, don't, no, not right now." And he takes a big swig of this water, and he starts to go like this. He walks on stage while he's gagging and putting this thing down because they called his name, and he can't talk to anybody. And it took him like about 3 or 4 minutes to get his voice back. And oh my God, it was just the wildest thing. It was the wildest times. What things, weird stuff, weird stories, funny stories, whatever.
Gosh. Well, I got two. One was, there's really quickly two. One quick one, and then I'm going to give you the other one. One was when you guys did the cheeky weeky thing on me.
Oh, right.
And it was you and our good buddy now in Arizona, Don Matlock. Remember?
Matlock.
He was there.
Matlock.
It was Matlock. He was there. It was Don, Matt, you, Dennis Gephardt was there.
Gephardt, yeah.
But you guys marked my face up with the wine cork, if you remember that. Oh God, I was painted black. But
this is
Go ahead.
Just so everybody knows, you would take a wine cork,
yes,
and then we would go to the bathroom, and you would burn it so it was all burnt, and then you would palm it in the palm of your hands like this, and then you'd have the cork sitting on the inside. And so then we'd do stupid stuff. Like we'd say, okay, and we'd set somebody, Dawn and I were always great at setting marks up.
Mark. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we would say, who's the mark? And we'd say, okay, Sam's the mark. And so we'd go, Dawn and I would go, we should have a game of Cheeky Weeky. And I'd go, no, it's just not appropriate here. And he'd say, yeah, let's have a game of Cheeky Weeky. And I went, no, you have to be really good at it. Sam goes, I'm really good at it. Well, so as soon as somebody says I'm really good, you're the mark. Yep. So Sam goes, no, I said, no, you have to be competitive. He said, I'm competitive. And he said, no, I don't think you could do that. It's for what, I can't remember what kind of stuff that we threw at you, but he kept baiting him. And he'd go, no, I'm really good. So then you would find out where the mark sits. So he was sitting beside me. So he'd go Cheeky Weeky. So you would have to do something like Cheeky Weeky, Chinny Winny, Foreheady Eddie, Eyesy Wisey, Earsy Weirsy. And we would go around the table, and you'd have to pass around. So every time that it would go to somebody else, Sam would be cheeking something like this. But every time that, I don't remember if it was I got you or Dawn scuffed you.
It was you.
But it was me. And so, but I had the cork, and then I would scuff them so you had charcoal here and all over your face by the time you were done. Those were good times.
Those were, and if you're going to do it, make sure get marked the right person.
Oh,
Let me just say that. That's important. That's important. Yeah, we've had some great times. I'll never forget one when they said you're going to go to Marrakesh, Morocco, and you're going to do an event for Belgium Redken at Marrakesh. You're going to have 300. They've taken over Club Med, and you'll be there for a week. And then they said one day, okay, you're going to do a poolside, Sam. I said, poolside? They said, yeah, we'll have a little canopy for you. And the general manager at the time, younger guy, kind of a really nice, cool guy. He said, "Sam, wear some sunglasses. It's going to be hot. It's going to, the sun, the glare." And he said, "We'll come and get you and your model when we're ready." They came and got me. And they introduced me. I come around to the front. I sit the model down. I start talking, Chris. I'm like, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? They're all in the pool. They're all laying down, but they are all topless.
Oh,
All topless. And so that's why he told me to wear sunglasses and he's back there in the back cracking up because he could see me just like, typical American man, he's not going to be able to handle this. And then what was funny was when they're in the pool, Chris, so they'd raise their hand, ask a question, go, "Oh, Sam," that was funny. I'll never forget. Yeah. Some great road stories. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right. So Sam, I mean, God, thank you for
a great time.
Yeah. But listen, I want to just a couple of quick questions, then I want to kind of start wrapping this up.
Okay.
We've always had people in our lives that have really changed the path of where you are in success wide, or sometimes even in your life. Who are the people that really changed your life, put you on the path that you were, and how did that affect you? So I don't know if that's fair, because I think that's 2 or 3 questions in there.
No. Very fair. One is definitely Ann Mincy. There's no doubt, the amount of years and the time that I had to spend with Ann Mincy, I don't keep in touch with her as much as I probably should, but she really affected my life in so many ways. And it goes back to my dad, because my dad would always attend those Redken events prior to me getting into hair. He attended those Redken events after I got into hair. He told me her story that she was the receptionist at one time. But Ann Mincy had a lot of impact, making me realize the whole mindset of how this is important and how you control it, and then how you use it when you communicate. The other impactful person in my career has to be Christine Schuster. I say that because Christine is what really started the whole educational side of me rethinking on how do I teach. Number one, by giving us the resources, one of them being Blair Singer. Giving us the resource to understand what it means to be a teacher, how to teach, but to an audience in terms of, they're first, not you. There were so many other things where I had a lot of ups and downs with Christine, where she really would pull me inside and help me understand those ups and downs, and a lot of good conversations. I mean, there's so many people, anyone that's been in that position has been really impactful in my life in that Redken position as a VP. I really believe, though, that she woke me up on that education side. Look, you think you're good? I'm going to make you really, really good. And that was that whole Blair Singer. So the last one is Blair. That last person is Blair in regards to, what he delivered and how he delivered it. I wasn't really on the side in the beginning, but then I figured out there was a why behind all that. But Blair really impacted the content side of me as a teacher, and impacted that in my life too. All of that information, I carry that around in my life. So when I think about my career, those minds come to thought right away. I mean, I think about those people. Obviously, Chris, you don't know this, but I mean, many years that we have spent together have been real special to me. We've definitely had our times together, but I mean, I'll never forget when you told me, when we were building that whole concept of PVD design and redesigning that whole thing together in that beginning process. You told me, listen, it's okay if we disagree. We have to agree to disagree. I'll never forget that, because that was difficult times, discussing what does this mean? What does that mean? No, it means this. No, it means that. Trying to define that whole process. And then where you've taken it now. I mean, you are definitely, a tremendous person in terms of the education side and what you brought. Your clarity is, I really think, God, how can I say this? Clarity without trust produces fear.
Yeah. And
you're one person that can be trusted. Oh, no doubt.
God bless you for that, my friend. That wasn't where I was expecting it to go, but thank you. I just want to kind of put a little bit of closure onto this, and I like to put the closure on with asking 2 questions. So I'm going to deal with the first one first, is that I always believe that if just let me just ask a question. If you had one wish for our industry, not you, not me, but just one wish for our industry, what would that be?
Wow. That the salon owner respects the suite owner, that the suite owner respects the chair owner, that the distributor respects the hairdresser, and the brands respect the distributor, and the brands respect each other. I mean, it goes back to that whole thing where I really believe it's about, there's plenty for everybody. The influencer respects the session artist, and the session artist respects the influencer, all the way down to the hairdresser at the chair.
Yeah.
I think, that's one thing that I dream, is that the respect level in the industry continues to grow and become better.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Very, very profound. And the last thing is just people need to, what if you had to say to somebody that just get off your assets and do something different or let something go, what would that be?
I would say in this industry, I think we need to learn to listen so we can listen to learn. And I'm referring to this industry right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We need to do
Say that again. Say that one more time.
We need to learn to listen so we can listen to learn from each other, any class that you're at. I think it's a double L right now. Listen and learn.
Yeah.
And learn to listen.
Yeah, because that takes the ego out of the situation, doesn't it?
It does. Yes. Yeah. Like we've always said, ego's okay as long as you know how to manage it. I'm not saying don't get rid of it, but you got to know how to manage that thing, or else it will control you.
Yeah. Sam, I'm always glad to be with you. I mean, we always have great conversations. I'm always humbled by the fact that I can even say that that you're a friend of mine, but I've learned so much from you. You've always given me inspiration. I've always got somebody that I could bounce an idea off of, and you always come from the hip. You just straight shoot, and you're not shy about just telling what needs to be said. And I really respect you for that. So I can't thank you on behalf of our listeners and the people watching this. I can't thank you enough for being on this and just showing what Sam Villa, the human being, is like. So, Mr. Villa, thank you. And we really appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. I'm glad to call you brother.
Awesome. Thank you, bud. So for all of you that are out there, we'll see you again next week. Goodbye. Good luck. God bless.